College graduates should not have to Obama posters and wondering when they can move out and get going with life.
I'm Marcus Mabry, live here in Tampa for the final day of the Republican National Convention. Mitt Romney will be speaking tonight, but everyone is still talking about Paul Ryan's big speech from last night. Joining me now to talk more about it, Ashley Parker of the New York Times. So, Ashley, a powerful speech last night. What did Paul Ryan need to do, and did he do it?
Well, the first thing he needed to do was he needed to come in here and really fire up the crowd and fire up the base. And I was watching the speech actually from a suite with some Romney donors, and he absolutely did do that. They loved it, and you could sort of hear the applause lines and the roar of the crowd. So the room in here was very, very positive for Paul Ryan.
Now, he had that great line that we opened the show with about these college students with these faded Obama posters on their walls and no jobs. Do you think that will play with a demographic that overwhelmingly supports Barack Obama?
Well, there's certainly a crowd pleaser again. I mean, the Romney campaign and Ryan, they're going after every vote, and that includes the youth vote. But one thing I thought he was doing with that line was he was really sort of trying to tap into a deeper emotion, which is the people who maybe like some of these young Obama kids were really swept up 4 years ago in hope and change, and now they're sort of feeling a disappointment, you know, as represented by the faded posters, but could it be a business that didn't pan out or an unemployment that's gone on longer than possible? And those are the sort of people they're really trying to reach with that.
Now, another powerful line of critique that he delivered last night was one that we're going to listen to now. Let's take a look at the clip.
Obamacare, as much as anything else, explains why a presidency that began with such anticipation now comes to such a disappointing close. It all started off with stirring speeches, Greek columns, the thrill of something new. Now, all that's left is a presidency adrift, surviving on slogans that already seem tired, grasping at a moment that has already passed, like a ship trying to sail on yesterday's wind.
Ashley, it seems incredibly effective here inside the hall. Will it play outside the hall? Will independent American swing voters, as well as the Republican base, listen to that message?
I mean, we saw there's sort of his most moment of grasping for, you know, soaring rhetoric, and it remains to be seen. But again, what they're trying to do is say, you know, what they want to do is appeal to independents and say that, you know, President Obama is not a bad guy. They don't want them to feel stupid for voting for him 4 years ago, but that there was this sort of sense of hope in this soaring rhetoric, but maybe it did pan out. They're trying to say, and it's okay for you to switch your vote and come over to us.
And he even mentioned his own state going for Obama, as if, you know, look, we were caught up in it too.
Look, it happens, but let's
right.
not do that again.
Now, one thing I was really struck by was this social issues. Really, there was one line, kind of a throwaway line, where he said Mitt Romney is going to defend marriage, and that, you know, that was meant to be against same-sex marriage rights. He had another line where he said he never used the word abortion or pro-life or any of that. What he said was he talked about every society's need to protect those who cannot protect themselves, those who are most vulnerable. Interesting tact here, all about the economic issues, nothing about the social issues that are nonetheless at the heart of the platform of this convention.
Right. Well, when you talk to the Romney advisors, they say, you know, if we can keep our focus on the economy, that's how we win. This is, you know, an economically driven campaign, not a social issue campaign. But that being said, that line was very interesting last night because what it does is it's sort of a line from the language of the pro-life movement. So in a way, it's a bit of a dog whistle. The people who it's meant for are certainly able to hear it, but it doesn't thrust social issues front and center to the platform.
Another set of issues that came up last night were foreign policy issues. Obviously, that's the case when you have Condoleezza Rice, former Secretary of State, on stage. Let's take a listen now to the former Secretary of State. Let's look at that clip.
I know that it feels as if we have carried these burdens long enough, but we can only know that there is no choice, because one of two things will happen if we don't lead. Either no one will lead and there will be chaos, or someone will fill the vacuum who does not share our values. My fellow Americans, we do not have a choice. We cannot be reluctant to lead, and you cannot lead from behind.
again, Ashley, these kind of two key speeches last night, really interesting for what they don't say. And what Condoleezza Rice didn't say in her speech was the word Obama. She didn't mention this administration. I think that was the strongest line she said. You cannot lead from behind, which was obviously a critique of their foreign policy. She didn't say, unlike John McCain, who earlier tonight said, implied that the administration should have intervened in Iran some way. She did not do that. She did not say they should have marched into Syria. It's not quite sure how she would direct a different foreign policy. She obviously is a foreign policy hawk. But what struck me most about her and Paul Ryan last night, where you have these two members of the party, whatever happens, whether Mitt Romney wins or loses, this time, both Condoleezza Rice and Paul Ryan will be valid candidates 4 years from now, even 8 years from now, even later than that in the case of Paul Ryan. Is there any fear, and you know Mitt Romney, you've been covering him for more than a year, is there any fear by Romney's advisors or other Republicans that these two speeches last night could actually overshadow the candidate himself?
Well, obviously, that's the one thing that they absolutely want to prevent from happening. But in talking to Romney advisors, they say they're not concerned. They say that Governor Romney, a bit like President Obama, actually is a real sort of a game time player, someone who performs in the fourth quarter when he needs to. And so they say he understands what the stakes are. He knows they're high, and he's going to meet the expectations.
All right. Well, we'll see. Pretty soon we'll have him up on that stage. What do you think he needs to do tonight, both inside this hall and then when he leaves this hall?
I mean, I think he wants to reintroduce himself to voters. We're hearing he's going to hit his faith, some of these important moments in his life, sort of show voters the warm and the funny Mitt Romney that his family knows and his advisors know, but doesn't always come through on the campaign trail. And he also wants to lay out his vision for America.
Thanks very much, Ashley.
Thank you.
We're moving now on to another installment of our agenda series, looking deeper at some of the difficult issues that the next President of the United States will face. Up today is health care. Reporter Abby Goodenough takes us through some of the challenges of this incredibly complex issue.
I'm Abby Goodenough. The Affordable Care Act is a huge, sweeping piece of legislation that can fundamentally change how healthcare is delivered and who's insured in this country. But at this moment, there's actually still so many open questions about which pieces of it will be broadly implemented around the country. So the bill lays out in a very detailed way how states can get millions and millions more people insured, both by expanding Medicaid for poor people and by setting up health insurance exchanges for other people to buy subsidized health insurance through. The problem is that fiercely partisan politics have come into play, especially since the Supreme Court ruling in June, which said that states can opt not to do the Medicaid expansion if they so choose. And this has set up a big battleground between Republican governors and the Obama administration.
Our plan was a state solution to a state problem. And his is a power grab by the federal government to put in place a one-size-fits-all plan across the nation.
Governor Romney, of course, is known for being the governor in Massachusetts who presided over expanding health insurance to almost the entire population there. However, he is against the Obama health care law.
On the first day, I would issue an executive order paving the way for Obamacare waivers to be given to all 50 states. And then I go to work with Congress to make sure that we could repeal Obamacare.
If Romney wins the presidency, you'll see some dramatic change in where health care reform is headed. You may well see the health care law repealed. Governor Romney and his running mate, Paul Ryan, have talked about changing the Medicaid program in particular to a program of block grants to the states. With President Obama being reelected, you would see states in particular who are in favor of the health care law, Democratic states in particular, continuing a pretty aggressive rollout schedule. However, even if Obama is reelected, you're still going to have some Republican states who are adamantly against implementing the law. So a lot remains up in the air, even if Obama is reelected.
I'm joined now by one of the Republican Party's leading voices on this issue, Representative Tom Price of Georgia, who's advocated a variety of health care bills with a focus on the repeal of the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. Representative Price, thank you so much for joining us.
It's my honor. Thank you.
Now, tell us to start off with, given this incredibly complex issue, how do you ensure tomorrow millions of Americans who don't have health care insurance?
Well, the bottom line is that you can solve these challenges without putting Washington in charge, and I think that's the take-home message that we would like to deliver from this convention. As a physician, I spent 20 years taking care of patients, and I can tell you When patients got the most angry, it was when they thought somebody else was affecting the decisions I could make for them. And that's what the President's law does. It affects directly what physicians are able to do for patients. But you can solve these challenges. You got to get folks covered, and you can do that through a financial incentive through the tax code, be it deductions or credits or advanceable credits or refundable advanceable credits, so that every single American has the financial feasibility to be able to purchase health coverage that they want for themselves, not that the government forces them to buy. And then there's some real insurance challenges. The status quo is clearly unacceptable. We need to solve those, portability and pre-existing being the two largest. And you can solve those relatively easily, again, without putting Washington in charge.
How do you solve those last two? Just I'm interested.
Portability is a real simple one. You just ought to be able to allow everybody to own their coverage regardless of who's paying for it. You ought not lose your insurance if you change your job or you lose your job. You ought to be able to take it with you wherever you go. Pre-existing illnesses and injuries is a bit more complex because those individuals in the individual and small group market are the ones who can get priced out of the market if they have a bad diagnosis. Mm-hmm. It's about 18 million Americans. How is everybody else protected? They have the power of numbers in the purchase of their insurance. So we ought to allow those 18 million Americans to pool with millions of each other so that they have the purchasing power of millions. Then one individual's health status, adverse health status, doesn't drive up the cost for anybody else.
And these are the fulcrums of the Ryan Romney plan.
Absolutely, yeah. We've got to make certain that patients and families and doctors are making medical decisions and not Washington, D.C.
Are you at all concerned that the Romney campaign seems to be very concerned that the Democrats might successfully, that fear-mongering is the phrase they use, critique this as a way, especially of making seniors think that this is some plan that's going to endanger their coverage under existing programs. Yeah. Are you all concerned about that working politically?
Well, if our friends on the other side would tell the truth, they would know that, in fact, everybody over the age of 55 will see no changes to their Medicare. In fact, we are the party that saves, strengthens, and secures Medicare. Again, no changes for those over the age of 55. And for those under, we would offer a guarantee of an opportunity for individuals to stay in Medicare, be in Medicare when they reach retirement age, or select a health coverage plan that better meets their needs.
Final question, Congressman. How does the plan tame the cost of health care? This country, one of the extraordinary realities of this country is that almost 20% of our GDP goes toward health care costs, unparalleled in any other advanced society. How do you tame it?
This is really important, Marcus, because the President's law actually doesn't address the costs in any way other than to deny payment for services for seniors through the Independent Payment Advisory Board. The cost drivers in health care are really no different than they are in any other business. They're taxes, taxation, litigation, regulation, and in health care there actually is a lack of competition. So if we are able to lower taxes so that the tax burden isn't so high, decrease regulations. The oppression of regulations right now, especially in the area of healthcare, is really harming physicians and hospitals trying to provide care. And then the whole issue of lawsuit abuse. We need to end the practice of defensive medicine with lawsuit abuse reform. We can save hundreds of billions of dollars if we do that. So you can get folks covered, you can solve the insurance challenges, and you can save hundreds of billions of dollars, all without putting Washington in charge.
Congressman, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Marcus.
My Opinion colleagues are up next. Op-ed columnist Charles Blow is standing by with fellow columnist Tom Friedman. Take it away, Charles.
Hello, everyone. I'm pleased to be joined today by Pulitzer Prize-winning Tom Friedman. Tom, so hard to know where to start here. What are the big themes you see coming out of this convention?
Two things really strike me,
Yes.
Charles. One is that Romney has really solidified, the party behind him, and neither he nor the party trust each other.
Okay.
I think that's one of the things I sort of take away from the feeling in the hall. My feeling is he's kind of renting this party to fulfill his dream of being president. They're kind of renting him to knock Obama out of power and pave the way for the next generation.
To buy time.
Exactly,
Right.
for the Ryans and the Christies. But I don't feel an organic link. There's something I find rather mechanical about all the speakers repeating, the kind of mantra about Romney saved the Olympics, he did this. But that kind of enthusiasm you felt toward Ryan, for instance,
Right.
you don't feel toward Romney. And tonight he'll get his standing ovation. They'll do
Right.
all the things.
Right.
But he doesn't really, I think, deep down trust them, and they don't really deep down
So
trust
is it
him.
really a solidification? I mean, is that the
I mean,
word
on
you
the
use?
surface it is.
So
Compared to what it was, you know what I mean?
But is it for him? Is it just anti-Obama? Is it?
Yeah.
Is it? What is it?
Well, I think it's for the election. Okay, it's about winning.
Okay.
And they've concluded that he's the best ticket to ousting Obama and gaining power again for the
He's
GOP.
all they have. I mean,
exactly.
at this
right.
point, there's no
exactly.
way
And
out
there
of
was
it.
nobody else. So
Right.
so it's a marriage of convenience.
Right.
But it's not a love marriage. This is an arranged marriage. Okay.
Okay.
This is like a marriage in India. It's not like a typical American to America. Okay. And that's so that's one impression.
Right.
The other impression I have is that. I came to Tampa hoping to see Mitt Romney's Etch-a-Sketch.
Okay.
And all I got was this lousy T-shirt. Okay. And what I mean by that is that, his campaign manager promised, okay, you run to the right, to win the primary, then you move to the center to win the general election. If there's been some movement to the center here, I've missed it. I don't have microscopic equipment.
But you were expecting that? Or you were expecting a real move to the
I
middle?
say it half tongue in cheek, but
okay.
it traditionally. But I think the fact that it's not happening, and traditionally it does,
Okay.
tells you something very important.
About the party,
about the party
or
right
about
now.
this time
Again, it's
in our
about
politics?
It's
or-
about, I think, the relationship that Romney has with the party, number one, which
Okay.
is that this is not Ronald Reagan, where people just said, Mr. Reagan, I trust you. You don't need to show me any details.
Right.
If you say you got to move to the center, you move to the center. No problem. Romney, I don't trust you. There'll be no moving to the center. There's two people watching each other like
they
hawks.
could have moved to the center with anyone? I mean, in the Tea Party age, where all moderates have basically been flushed from the system,
Yes.
could anyone who could have survived the
This
primary process, could they have the possibility of moving to the center at a primary? I mean, I'm
it's
curious.
a good question, and I think the right leader could have, because let's remember at the end of
But
the
do
day.
the Republicans even have that right?
Well,
leader?
they may not have, but let's remember at the end of the day, they didn't go for Santorum, they didn't go for Bachman, so they did go for the guy who thought he could win.
Okay.
That means he had some leverage. I would argue they've changed him much more than he's changed them, even though he had the leverage.
But he had the machine, right? He had the machine, he had the money, he had the... That's a slightly different thing from being the guy who was loved, and regardless, we were going to vote for you.
Right.
So when people surged past him in the primaries, he would just clobber them.
Yeah.
He and his machine would
bombarded
clobber
with
them
money,
with money, and so they could never quite rise. But in some ways, you could have imagined one of those guys holding out and winning.
Yeah, at the end of the day. Well, and again, even the what's his name, Ron Paul. I mean, the fact that sort of residual is still there. You see how hungry they are.
Right.
That kind of. What does Ron Paul really represent? I think he represents authenticity.
Okay.
Something deeply authentic that they miss in Romney a lot. I mean, there's Romney's candidacy strikes me as having made in a test tube. It's kind of this chemical and that chemical with the poll in, shake and stir, you got a candidate.
And very careful with the goggles,
right,
they don't want to get any splash on them.
You don't want to get any of that in your eyes, I'll tell you. But there's nothing organic. Now, that doesn't mean guy can't win a national election right now, because you can't beat something with nothing.
But are you picking up any grand vision from the Republicans? Is there something that is aspirational in this convention?
Yeah, I think there's a deep aspiration to take us back to Barry Goldwater's Republican Party. That is the truly only aspirational thing I pick up on. Ryan's speech last night was beautifully delivered, incredibly well written, and utterly misleading about what their intentions are and what their responsibilities are. They got this debt clock in there, pointing to $16 trillion in our national debt, and it's true. But at least half of that's on their bill, okay? And the idea that only Obama hasn't taken responsibility? I mean, come on, guys, So, how can we... I don't sense any great journey they have us on. I wish I sensed a great journey Obama had us on. And I still believe this is the first election in American history where both men are running as I'm not Mitt Romney. And so Obama's not running as Obama. He's, I'm not him. And Mitt Romney say, I'm not that guy who I was.
You think the Obama campaign is basically just playing defense?
Yeah, I think they're very much playing defense.
And they don't also have a big vision.
Right. I just don't see it. I think they have little visions, but they have not packaged it into a deep narrative that people really, that you repeat, that everyone carries around, that people know where you want to go.
And is it possible in this political environment for them to do that and also win an election when they're being clobbered
Right.
for the big things that they did in the first term.
Well, not only do I think it's possible, I think it's actually the way you win. I mean, let's do the math here. You know, Axelrod, and everyone's been telling us, we're going to go negative. We're going to take him down first. First we got to take him apart, and then we're going to. Well, the guy's leading in the polls, right now, and certainly a lot of the polls. How's that working for you, Axe? Surely they can't expect that. They didn't expect that after all $100 million in negative ads, that Romney would be leading with such a weak candidacy, and a terrible foreign trip, no real agenda of his own. I mean, they're not in a good place right now.
Is
the
that,
Democrats,
but is that big glaring unemployment number that just won't go away? And to a lesser degree, things like, gasoline prices.
Right.
But things that people can get their heads around. It doesn't take a lot of studying. You don't have to explain a bill to me for me to know that my neighbor's out of work or that the person down the street has lost their house. Those things simply are so stubborn, will not go away. Is it possible for them to make a craft an argument that gets past those big, glaring, simple things?
I think this time is different. Okay. I think Americans understand what you're saying, and what they're looking for in the president is, tell me you have a plan to get us out of this. That's what I'm missing. I did a column a while back called Wasting Warren Buffett. Because if I had one crack at Warren Buffett, would I use it on the Buffett rule, a tax, kind of gimmick, basically, that they used for a couple of weeks and then went away? I would have gone to Buffett and said, here's our plan. Here's our plan for short-term stimulus. But Obama does have a plan. Okay, here's our plan for longer-term, deficit fiscal. Would you endorse it? Oh, no, you'll only endorse it if we go here, okay? Right. So then we'll go here. Imagine if Obama were on the road every day saying, not all this little stuff, I have a plan, and my friend Warren over here says that's the plan that will get us out of this. I think that's what people want.
Okay, we've run out of time. If you get that Buffett meeting, I want to be in that Buffett meeting.
You got it, Joe. You got it.
Back to you, Marcus. I'm going to try to get Tom back here at 7 o'clock. I'm going to do
We're talking about his book.
Yes, that's about your book.
Now in a paperback.
Goodbye. Thanks, Marcus.
Thanks, Charles. I'm joined now by Matt Stapiro, a reporter with BuzzFeed, who's looking at the lighter side of this convention. Not that we are not elsewise. How are you, Matt? Good to see you.
Hey, how's it going?
What has caught your eye this week?
So I'm talking fashion today. I'm talking fab or drab. I've been walking around and checking out all the hot looks and seeing what people are wearing.
Okay, the RNC, known for its fashion sense.
Totally.
So tell us about what you've seen.
So one of my favorite things, the most fabulous thing, is when a delicacy dresses all the same. And my favorite, the number one fabulous group, is definitely Texas. I love these girls right here with their matching denim and their Texas shirts.
Denim skirts. You might not have thought those were in style anymore.
Exactly. And I love Texas because every day they wear a different thing. Like the first day was denim day and the second day was khakis, and now tonight is dress up, so we should see some funny things out of them.
Are we talking tuxes and stuff, you think, tonight?
I think we'll see some bolo ties and something like that. Sure. And then in the same way that Texas dresses up, we have Colorado. And Colorado, to me, is just drab.
I see.
Because they just seem to kind of be in Texas's shadow. Like, they're dressing in the similar style, and you can't really distinguish them.
So we're a poor man's Texas, they say in Colorado, huh?
That's exactly what's going on. Totally. And then one of my other favorite things are the hats. But you got to do the hats right.
Right, sure.
Like, you can't just attach a Beanie Baby to your hat like this lady did.
That didn't work.
And call it a day. Like, I need some more effort.
I hear you. That's drab.
Totally. We had to drab. But then there's the right way to wear a Beanie Baby on your head. And it's like this lady. She totally nailed it. The Beanie Baby is just hanging out on the head, and she's got another nice elephant detail on there.
Actually, have you practiced how to wear a Beanie Baby on your head?
No, I mean, I've only seen it here, so, I mean, I just judge based on, the effort. It's all about putting an effort to me, because to me, one of my favorite parts is seeing all the people dressed up and just kind of seeing everyone into the spirit and everything.
Now, you've been watching this convention both here in the hall and on social media. I mean, what are you hearing out in the social media world? Is anyone outside of Tampa following this convention? What are the Democrats doing? Are they fuming? What are they doing?
Yeah, well, I mean, on my side of things, I see a lot of talk on social media, on Twitter, on what people are wearing. You know, they see the people on TV or they read about it, and it's like, oh my gosh, did you see that crazy hat that one person had? Or one of the things people are talking a lot about is the bling. There's a lot of fancy diamond and crystals and rhinestones, which and I've been told that won't be at the Democratic convention. So we'll see. I hope.
The Dems don't have the bling.
Exactly.
Well, one thing I noticed, and this is definitely not costume jewelry. Condoleezza Rice. Condoleezza Rice had these diamond earrings on during her speech, and those things were like, they were blinding.
Yeah.
And she does not do costume jewelry. So those were not rhinestones.
I know. Well, I know. I've been seeing that too, and I've been seeing some awesome bracelets and. It all depends, I've heard that tonight, the last night, is when the real bling comes out and everyone goes kind of to the extreme. So I hope, because that's my favorite part. So
excellent. Well, we'll be looking forward to that. We'll be watching who's fab and who's drab tonight. Matt, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, no problem.
Well, that's all from me for now. We'll be back live at 7 p.m. with lots more, including an interview with Utah Senator Orrin Hatch and an appearance by Jill Abramson, the executive editor of the New York Times, to talk about her impressions of this convention. Until then, I'm Marcus Mabry. Thanks for watching the New York Times.